Alright, the wait is over. Are you ready for the cliffhanger to be ended here? This second half of the chapter is fire, and I'm really loving this book. Hope you are as well. I know the wait is hard, but I don't want that to have to continue to be the case. I hate chopping up chapters, so if you want to end the chopping, then go to anotherworldaudiobooks.com, click on Become a Patron. Once we get to 12 patrons, that's kind of the goal mark that we've set for ourselves. Once we hit that 12 patron mark, we are going to stop chopping up chapters, and I'm super excited to get to that point and stop doing that, because these cliffhangers are very difficult to go a whole week in between episodes. I'd love to be bringing you longer episodes, more episodes, but I can't do that without your help. So spreading the word is the next best thing. If you can't contribute, then I really appreciate you just telling other people about the podcast. That's the only way that I've really ever seen the podcast grow, is when other people are getting involved and helping me spread the word. So I'm so grateful for everybody who shares the podcast on social media, comments, any kind of sharing that you can do, telling other people, getting them subscribed is just so helpful, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening, and without further ado, let's get right into it. I give you part 2 of chapter 6 of Arsene Lupin versus Herlock Sholmes. "I play the king," said Sholmes as he fired his revolver. "And I the ace," replied Lupin as he struck at Holmes with his fist. Sholmes had fired into the air as a signal to Ganimard, whose assistance he required. But Lupin's fist had caught Sholmes in the stomach and caused him to double up with pain. Lupin rushed to the fireplace and set the marble slab in motion. Too late. The door opened. "Surrender, Lupin, or I fire!" Ganimard, doubtless stationed closer than Lupin had thought. Ganimard was there, with his revolver turned on Lupin. And behind Ganimard there were 20 men, strong and ruthless fellows, who would beat him like a dog at the least sign of resistance. "Hands down, I surrender," said Lupin calmly, and he folded his arms across his breast. Everyone was amazed. In the room divested of its furniture and hangings, Arsene Lupin's words sounded like an echo. "I surrender." It seemed incredible. No one would have been astonished if he had suddenly vanished through a trap, or if a section of the wall had rolled away and allowed him to escape. But he surrendered. Ganimard advanced, nervously, and with all the gravity that the importance of the occasion demanded. He placed his hand on the shoulder of his adversary, and had the infinite pleasure of saying, "I arrest you, Arsene Lupin." "Brr," said Lupin. "You make me shiver, my dear Ganimard. What a lugubrious face! One would imagine you were speaking over the grave of a friend. For heaven's sake, don't assume such a funereal air." "I arrest you." "Don't let that worry you. In the name of the law, of which he is a well-deserving pillar, Ganimard, the celebrated Parisian detective, arrests the wicked Arsene Lupin. An historic event, of which you will appreciate the true importance. And it is the second time that it has happened. Bravo, Ganimard. You are sure of advancement in your chosen profession." And he held out his wrists for the handcuffs. Ganimard adjusted them in a most solemn manner. The numerous policemen, despite their customary presumption and the bitterness of their feelings toward Lupin, conducted themselves with becoming modesty, astonished at being permitted to gaze upon that mysterious and intangible creature. "My poor Lupin," sighed our hero. "What would your aristocratic friends say if they could see you in this humiliating position?" He pulled his wrists apart with all his strength. The veins in his forehead expanded. The links of the chain cut into his flesh. The chain fell off, broken. "Another, comrades. That one was useless." They placed 2 on him this time. "Quite right," he said. "You cannot be too careful." Then, counting the detectives and policemen, he said, "How many are you, my friends? 25? 30? That's too many. I can't do anything. If there had been only 15. There was something fascinating about Lupin. It was the fascination of the great actor who plays his role with spirit and understanding, combined with assurance and ease. Sholmes regarded him as one might regard a beautiful painting, with a due appreciation of all its perfection in coloring and technique. And he really thought that it was an equal struggle between those 30 men on one side, armed as they were with all the strength and majesty of the law, and on the other side that solitary individual, unarmed and handcuffed. Yes, the two sides were well matched. "Well, master," said Lupin to the Englishman, "this is your work. Thanks to you, Lupin is going to rot on the damp straw of a dungeon. Confess that your conscience pricks you a little, and that your soul is filled with remorse." In spite of himself, Sholmes shrugged his shoulders, as if to say, "It's your own fault." "Never, never!" exclaimed Lupin. "Give you the blue diamond? No, it has cost me too much trouble. I intend to keep it. On my occasion of my first visit to you in London, which will probably be next month, I will tell you my reasons. But will you be in London next month? Or do you prefer Vienna? Or St. Petersburg?" Then Lupin received a surprise. A bell commenced to ring. It was not the alarm bell, but the bell of the telephone, which was located between the two windows of the room and had not yet been removed. The telephone. Who could it be? Who was about to fall into this unfortunate trap? Arsene Lupin exhibited an access of rage against the unlucky instrument, as if he would like to break it into 1,000 pieces, and thus stifle the mysterious voice that was calling for him. But it was Ganimard who took down the receiver and said, "Hello? Hello? Number 64873. Yes, this is it." Then Sholmes stepped up, and with an air of authority, pushed Ganimard aside, took the receiver, and covered the transmitter with his handkerchief, in order to obscure the tone of his voice. At that moment he glanced toward Lupin, and the look which they exchanged indicated that the same idea had occurred to each of them, and that they foresaw the ultimate result of that theory. It was the blonde lady who was telephoning. She wished to telephone to Felix Davy, or rather to Maxime Bermond, and it was to Sholmes she was about to speak. The Englishman said, "Hello. Hello?" Then, after a silence, he said, "Yes, it is I, Maxime." The drama had commenced, and was progressing with tragic precision. Lupin, the irrepressible and nonchalant Lupin, did not attempt to conceal his anxiety, and he strained every nerve in a desire to hear, or at least to divine the purport of the conversation. And Sholmes continued in reply to the mysterious voice. "Hello. Hello, yes, everything has been moved, and I'm just ready to leave here and meet you as we agreed. Where? Where you are now. Don't believe that he is here yet." Sholmes stopped, seeking for words. It was clear that he was trying to question the girl without betraying himself, and that he was ignorant of her whereabouts. Moreover, Ganimard's presence seemed to embarrass him. If some miracle would only interrupt that cursed conversation! Lupin prayed for it with all his strength, with all the intensity of his incited nerves. After a momentary pause, Sholmes continued, "Hello, hello, do you hear me? I can't hear you very well. Can scarcely make out what you are saying. Are you listening? Well, I think you had better return home. No danger now. But he is in England. I have received a telegram from Southampton announcing his arrival." The sarcasm of those words. Sholmes uttered them with an inexpressible comfort, and he added, "Very well. Don't lose any time. I will meet you there." He hung up the receiver. "Monsieur Ganimard, can you furnish me with 3 men?"
"For the blonde lady, eh?"
"Yes."
"You know who she is, and where she is?"
"Yes."
"Good. That settles Monsieur Lupin. Follevant, take 2 men and go with Monsieur Sholmes."
The Englishman departed, accompanied by the 3 men. The game was ended. The blonde lady was also about to fall into the hands of the Englishman. Thanks to his commendable persistence, and to a combination of fortuitous circumstances, the battle had resulted in a victory for the detective, and in irreparable disaster for Lupin. "Monsieur Sholmes!" The Englishman stopped. "Monsieur Lupin?" Lupin was clearly shattered by this final blow. His forehead was marked by deep wrinkles. He was sullen and dejected. However, he pulled himself together, and, notwithstanding his defeat, he exclaimed in a cheerful tone, "You will concede that fate had been against me. A few minutes ago, it prevented my escape through the chimney and delivered me into your hands. Now, by means of the telephone, it presents you with the blonde lady. I submit to its decrees."
"What do you mean?"
"I mean that I am ready to reopen our negotiations." Sholmes took Ganimard aside and asked, in a manner that did not permit a reply, the authority to exchange a few words with the prisoner. Then he approached Lupin and said in a sharp, nervous tone,
"What do you want?"
"Mademoiselle d'Etanges' liberty."
"You know the price."
"Yes."
"And you accept?"
"Yes, I accept your terms."
"Ah," said the Englishman in surprise. "But you refused? For yourself?"
"Yes, I can look out for myself, Monsieur Sholmes, but now the question concerns a young woman, and a woman I love. In France, understand, we have very decided ideas about such things, and Lupin has the same feelings as other people."
He spoke with simplicity and candour.
Sholmes replied by an almost imperceptible inclination of his head and murmured,
"Very well. The blue diamond."
"Take my cane there, at the end of the mantle. Press on the head of the cane with one hand, and with the other, turn the iron ferrule at the bottom." Sholmes took the cane and followed the directions. As he did so, the head of the cane divided and disclosed a cavity which contained a small ball of wax which, in turn, enclosed a diamond. He examined it. It was the blue diamond.
"Monsieur Lupin, Mademoiselle d'Etanges is free."
"Is her future safety assured? Has she nothing to fear from you?"
"Neither from me nor anyone else."
"How can you manage it?"
"Quite easily. I have forgotten her name and address."
"Thank you, and au revoir, for I will see you again sometime, Monsieur Sholmes."
"I have no doubt of it."
Then followed an animated conversation between Sholmes and Ganimard, which was abruptly terminated by the Englishman, who said,
"I am very sorry, Monsieur Ganimard, that we cannot agree on that point, but I have no time to waste trying to convince you. I leave for England within an hour."
"But the blonde lady?"
"I do not know such a person."
"And yet, a moment ago—"
"You must take the affair as it stands. I have delivered Arsene Lupin into your hands. Here is the blue diamond, which you will have the pleasure of returning to the Countess de Crozon. What more do you want?"
"The blonde lady!"
"Find her."
Sholmes pulled his cap down over his forehead and walked rapidly away, like a man who is accustomed to go as soon as his business is finished. "Bon voyage, monsieur," cried Lupin. "And believe me, I shall never forget the friendly way in which our little business affairs have been arranged. My regards to Monsieur Wilson." Not receiving any reply, Lupin added sneeringly, "That is what is called taking British leave. Their insingular dignity lacks the flower of courtesy by which we are distinguished. Consider for a moment, Ganimard, what a charming exit a Frenchman would have made under similar circumstances. With what exquisite courtesy he would have masked his triumph. But, God bless me, Ganimard, what are you doing? Making a search? Come, what's the use? There is nothing left, not even a scrap of paper. I assure you, my archives are in a safe place."
"I am not so sure of that," replied Ganimard. "I must search everything."
Lupin submitted to the operation. Held by 2 detectives and surrounded by the others, he patiently endured the proceedings for 20 minutes. Then he said, "Hurry up, Ganimard, and finish."
"You are in a hurry?"
"Of course I am. An important appointment."
"At the police station?"
"No, in the city."
"Ah, at what time?"
2 o'clock.
"It is 3 o'clock now."
"Just so. I will be late, and punctuality is one of my virtues."
"Well, give me 5 minutes."
"Not a second more," said Lupin.
"I am doing my best to expedite—"
"Oh, don't talk so much. Still searching that cupboard? It is empty."
"Here are some letters."
"Old invoices, I presume."
"No, a packet tied with a ribbon."
"A red ribbon? Oh, Ganimard, for God's sake, don't untie it.
For a woman?
Yes.
A woman of the world?
The best in the world.
Her name?
Madame Ganimard.
Very funny, very funny, exclaimed the detective.
At that moment, the men who had been sent to search the other rooms returned and announced their failure to find anything. Lupin laughed and said,
Parbleu, did you expect to find my visiting list, or evidence of my business relations with the Emperor of Germany? But I can tell you what you should investigate, Ganimard, all the little mysteries of this apartment. For instance, that gas pipe is a speaking tube, that chimney contains a stairway, that wall is hollow, and the marvellous system of bells. Ah, Ganimard, just press that button.
Ganimard obeyed. Did you hear anything? Asked Lupin.
No.
Neither did I, and yet you notified my aeronaut to prepare the dirigible balloon which will soon carry us into the clouds.
Come,
said Ganimard, who had completed his search.
We've had enough nonsense. Let's be off.
He started away, followed by his men. Lupin did not move. His guardians pushed him in vain.
Well,
said Ganimard,
do you refuse to go?
Not at all, but it depends.
On what?
Where you want to take me.
To the station house, of course.
Then I refuse to go. I have no business there.
Are you crazy?
Did I not tell you that I had an important appointment?
Lupin!
Why, Ganimard, I have an appointment with the blonde lady, and do you suppose I would be so discourteous as to cause her a moment's anxiety? That would be very ungentlemanly.
Listen, Lupin,
said the detective, who was becoming annoyed by this persiflage.
I have been very patient with you, but I will endure no more. Follow me.
Impossible. I have an appointment, and I shall keep it.
For the last time, follow me.
Impossible.
At a sign from Ganimard, 2 men seized Lupin by the arms, but they released him at once, uttering cries of pain. Lupin had thrust 2 long needles into them. The other men now rushed at Lupin with cries of rage and hatred, eager to avenge their comrades, and to avenge themselves for the many affronts he had heaped upon them. And now they struck and beat him to their heart's desire. A violent blow on the temple felled Lupin to the floor.
If you hurt him, you will answer to me,
growled Ganimard in a rage. He leaned over Lupin to ascertain his condition. Then, learning that he was breathing freely, Ganimard ordered his men to carry the prisoner by the head and feet, while he himself supported the body.
Go gently now, don't jolt him. The brutes would have killed him. Well, Lupin, how goes it?
None too well, Ganimard. You let them knock me out.
It was your own fault. You were so obstinate,
replied Ganimard.
But I hope they didn't hurt you.
They had left the apartment, and were now on the landing. Lupin groaned and stammered,
Ganimard, the elevator, they are breaking my bones.
A good idea, an excellent idea,
replied Ganimard.
Besides, the stairway is too narrow.
He summoned the elevator. They placed Lupin on the seat with the greatest care. Ganimard took his place beside him and said to his men,
Go down the stairs and wait for me below. Understand?
Ganimard closed the door of the elevator. Suddenly, the elevator shot upward like a balloon released from its cable. Lupin burst into a fit of sardonic laughter.
Good God!
cried Ganimard, as he made a frantic search in the dark for the button of descent. Having found it, he cried,
The 5th floor! Watch the door of the 5th floor!
His assistants clambered up the stairs, 2 and 3 steps at a time. But this strange circumstance happened. The elevator seemed to break through the ceiling of the last floor, disappeared from the sight of Ganimard's assistants, suddenly made its appearance on the upper floor, the servants' floor, and stopped. 3 men were waiting for it. They opened the door. 2 of them seized Ganimard, who, astonished at the sudden attack, scarcely made any defense. The other man carried off Lupin. I warned you, Ganimard, about the dirigible balloon. Another time, don't be so tender-hearted. And moreover, remember that Arsene Lupin doesn't allow himself to be struck and knocked down without sufficient reason. Adieu. The door of the elevator was already closed on Ganimard, and the machine began to descend. And it all happened so quickly that the old detective reached the ground floor as soon as his assistants. Without exchanging a word, they crossed the court and ascended the servants' stairway, which was the only way to reach the servants' floor through which the escape had been made. A long corridor with several turns and bordered with little numbered rooms led to a door that was not locked. On the other side of this door, and therefore in another house, there was another corridor with similar turns and similar rooms, and at the end of it a servants' stairway. Ganimard descended it, crossed the court and a vestibule, and found himself in the Rue Picot. Then he understood the situation. The two houses, built the entire depth of the lots, touched at the rear, while the fronts of the houses faced upon two streets that ran parallel to each other at a distance of more than 60 meters apart. He found the concierge, and, showing his card, inquired,
"Did 4 men pass here just now?"
"Yes, the 2 servants from the 4th and 5th floors with 2 friends."
"Who lives on the 4th and 5th floors?"
2 men named Fauvel and their cousins, whose name is Provost. They moved today, leaving the 2 servants, who went away just now."
Thought Ganimard.
"What a grand opportunity we have missed. The entire band lived in these houses."
And he sank down on a chair in despair. 40 minutes later, 2 gentlemen were driven up to the station of the Northern Railway and hurried to the Calais Express, followed by a porter who carried their valises. One of them had his arm in a sling, and the pallor of his face denoted some illness. The other man was in a jovial mood.
"We must hurry, Wilson, or we will miss the train. Ah, Wilson, I shall never forget these 10 days.
"Neither will I."
Ah, it was a great struggle.
"Superb."
A few repulses here and there.
"Of no consequence."
And at last, victory, all along the line. Lupin arrested, the blue diamond recovered."
"My arm broken?"
"What does a broken arm count for in such a victory as that?"
"Especially when it is my arm."
"Ah, yes. Don't you remember, Wilson, that it was at the very time you were in the pharmacy, suffering like a hero, that I discovered the clue to the whole mystery?"
"How lucky."
The doors of the carriages were being closed.
"All aboard! Hurry up, gentlemen!"
The porter climbed into an empty compartment and placed their valises in the rack, whilst Sholmes assisted the unfortunate Wilson.
"What's the matter, Wilson? You're not done up, are you? Come, pull your nerves together."
"My nerves are all right."
"Well, what is it then?"
"I have only one hand."
"What of it?" exclaimed Sholmes cheerfully. "You are not the only one who has had a broken arm. Cheer up."
Sholmes handed the porter a piece of 50 centimes.
"Thank you,
Monsieur Sholmes," said the porter. The Englishman looked at him. It was Arsene Lupin.
You,
he stammered, absolutely astounded. And Wilson brandished his sound arm in the manner of a man who demonstrates a fact as he said,
But you were arrested! Sholmes told me so! When he left you, Ganimard and 30 men had you in charge!"
Lupin folded his arms and said, with an air of indignation,
"Did you suppose I would let you go away without bidding you adieu? After the very friendly relations that have always existed between us? That would be discourteous and ungrateful on my part."
The train whistled. Lupin continued,
"I beg your pardon, but you have everything you need. Tobacco and matches, yes, and the evening papers. You will find in them an account of my arrest, your last exploit, Monsieur Sholmes. And now, au revoir. I'm delighted to have made your acquaintance, and if ever I can be of any service to you, I shall be only too happy."
He leaped from the platform and closed the door.
"Adieu,"
he repeated, waving his handkerchief.
"Adieu. I shall write to you. You will write also, eh? And your arm broken, Wilson. I am truly sorry. I shall expect to hear from both of you. A postal card, now and then. Simply address Lupin, Paris. That is sufficient. Adieu. See you soon."
Oh, he's done it again. Arsene Lupin pulling it out of the hat at the last minute. That is brilliant. That twist was so good. Oh man, I can't wait to see what is coming in the next couple chapters here. We are getting close to the end of this book, so I want to hear from you. What book would you like to hear next? Should we carry on with Arsene Lupin? There's more books in the series, so I want to hear from you. Or should we take a break, do more of a Jane Austen or something like that? What would you like to hear next on the podcast? Get in touch with me, anotherworldaudiobooks.com for all the links, or go to anotherworldaudiobooks at gmail.com. Just send an email there, and then you can also, just comment on social media as well. Send me some social media messages or whatever you want to do. Would love to hear from you guys and hear what you would like to hear next. But next week is going to be the next chapter here with Arsene Lupin, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a good one, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you guys. Have a great week, and we'll catch you next week.